In my last two videos about the new masculine aesthetic, I talked about the modern man's struggles and his growing sense of meaninglessness. I also discussed how groups of men in Europe are creating new forms of traditionalism and aesthetics to pull man back from his decline. Today, I will present my own proposal, my own way of addressing these issues without relying on a European community. After all, we know different circumstances don't allow us to simply copy the same experiences from other countries. So now, I will show how we can unite aesthetics with realism, aiming to replace the mechanical utilitarian pragmatism of modernity. If you are not familiar with these terms, I suggest watching my previous videos. They will give you a better notion for today's discussion. First, I want to make one thing clear. Everything I'm about to say today is deeply tied to my own way of seeing the world, and only through this lens can I resolve these issues. And I understand that for some people, a purely utilitarian life is perfectly enough. So my proposal speaks more to those who aren't satisfied with the robotic routine of modern life, those who feel guilty over things that don't truly exist, like abstract ideals, capitalism, and the supposed lack of equality. But here, I start from a different assumption. Modern problems are not caused by external systems. They are conceptual and psychological errors, failures to adapt to certain circumstances. We can't fully blame invisible forces like the pursuit of money or the so-called objectification of women under capitalism. Why? Because the masses follow utilitarian logic by choice. People freely seek capital gain. This drive comes from individuals, not from some imposed structure. If things could be done differently, that means no absolute compulsion exists. So, it makes no sense to blame the system itself. It's like blaming the distance between an archer and his target, when the real cause of hitting or missing lies in the archer, not the space between. In this case, capital is just the distance between man and his shallow, utilitarian ambitions. Now, if we wanted to criticize people for their choices, their egoism, that would make more sense. It doesn't hold up to say that people behave this way because the system forces them. After all, people create and reshape the system. If everyone decided today to change the mode of production, it would happen, because no one would be left to sustain the old one. The truth is, people are comfortable with both sides, and that comfort is what keeps the current system alive. Still, this is different when it comes to utilitarian pragmatism. Not everyone is at peace with a purely utilitarian way of living. Many feel deep sorrow having to live this way, but since they can't imagine another perspective, they remain trapped in suffering. It's precisely for them that I want to offer a solution. The first necessary shift, we must move beyond purely sexual utilitarianism. People have become addicted to framing everything in terms of sex and relationships, and so sexual concerns have taken over the modern world entirely. This exaggerated fixation can even lead to madness. When someone can only interpret reality through a sexual, utilitarian lens, their mind becomes blocked to anything beyond the profane and practical. They will only think in terms of maximizing sexual or relational gain. They become a relational robot. I don't need to explain how damaging this is for both mind and body. Instead, I propose an aesthetic realism applied to all areas of life, including sexuality. By simplifying the dynamics tied to relationships, we can finally move past endless debates about the moral nature of men and women. To make this easier to grasp, I already have a clear idea of how it works. In my view, there are no fixed roles tied to being a man or a woman. And I understand that society has always imposed such roles precisely to maintain social cohesion. That said, I'm not claiming roles should disappear. If societies only began to stabilize once roles were established, that's a strong sign these roles serve a social purpose. The issue is this: masculine and feminine natures don't follow written rules. When either tries to change their nature into something unnatural or dysfunctional, it only triggers a slow decline, mental and physical. And that's exactly what's happening today. As I said before, gathering elements of something doesn't automatically create that experience. If you act mechanically, trying to imitate a woman, for instance, won't make you one. Your body won't accept it. So we can't expect a planet to behave like a ray of light, and we can't pretend this logic doesn't apply to men and women. There are physical limits to how far one can become the other, and vice versa. Now, here's what I believe could help men. Recognizing that the feminine has a unique capacity for self-seduction, the ability to feel seduced by oneself, something men don't do nearly as well. That's why social media tends to favor female narcissism more than male, and why online community is central for men while individual self-presentation is central for women. But here's the key: there's an individualistic path available to men, one rarely taken, and if followed, it could free them from both undesirable paths, robotic utility and forced imitation. Unlike women, men don't feel that deep need to profane or expose themselves. On the contrary, a man feels seduced not by self-display but by mastery, by asserting control over things. That's why men find pleasure in gaining financial, practical, or political power. Yet that same drive for mastery can be redirected into new, unexplored domains to escape the mechanical race of modern life. This becomes possible when a man unites aesthetics with realism and begins to take pleasure in creating values rooted in a masculine aesthetic. That's essentially what's happening in Europe. But this doesn't require a collective, it can be built individually. When you take full ownership of these elements, not as rules but as materials, and shape them into your own experience, in your own instance, own ego, that's when true transformation begins. I believe many men went far when they embraced the more radical edges of utilitarianism. In a way, this created an initial form of realism, one that trivialized human relationships, and from this came what we now see: today's minimalist, detached approach to connection. The problem? In making this move, they forgot about the things that aren't trivial, and so they imposed to trivialize and industrialize everything spread too far. Eventually, everything became just another trivial sexual matter, and everyone got absorbed into this vast, shallow mass. From an egoic standpoint, what's mine is mine because I don't allow others to take it. It's up to me to protect what I've claimed, whether it's a relationship, an idea, or any kind of possession. But if all matters are trivial and they all blur into one another, if every relationship is just another utilitarian exchange, then nothing is truly mine. It's like shared property. The moment you open it all to all, it belongs to no one. In that case, realism means recognizing this and stepping outside of it, because this dynamic doesn't give you anything, it only takes what you already have. That's a deeply parasitic quality to modern social life. How it invades the personal, how it tries to turn everything into labor, into utility. This is the dream of modern corporatism: to make all of life functional, efficient, and empty. And it runs directly against conscious egoism. If nothing is truly mine, if everything is just utilitarian, just common, then there's nothing there for me. This is the first step toward a deeper realism, one that goes beyond basic utilitarianism. When we unite aesthetics with realism, we create a form of expansion that surpasses modern utilitarianism. We move beyond its mediocrity, and in doing so, we also overcome the problems tied to female narcissism, which in truth is the sister of modern utilitarianism and thus no true friend to the modern man. As long as a man remains trapped in utilitarianism, he lives as if he were a woman, chasing trivial validation, reducing everything to what's common, what's shared, what's instantly usable. He remains stuck in absolute utility, where only the basic and the trivial exist, where only the useful idiot survives. In many ways, modernity was designed to serve feminine individualism, not masculine. I believe most of us already have enough examples to see this clearly. As I said before, we only create meaning when we set an end to cycles. Otherwise, it's just robotic repetition. The same applies here. The cycle of modern utilitarianism must be overcome, and so must the man's attempt to be like a woman, that is, to become a mere utilitarian narcissist, someone who turns everything to something common, disposable, shallow. In my view, what's mine is not common, what's mine does not belong to another. If someone wants to pretend they possess what is mine, then let them carry on my mark, my form, but simply gathering the same elements won't recreate my experience. That's why this union of aesthetic and realism must be built individually. It doesn't happen automatically for everyone. I can make others live what I live, but I can tell them you can create your own experience using the elements you find meaningful. Their journey will only go as far as their context allows. So anyone who just pretends to change without truly aiming to it won't get far. So, when I say that aesthetics combined with realism allows a man to overcome these problems, I'm not just talking about physical appearance. I'm talking about appropriation, about creation, about forging a new distance. As long as we remain glued to utilitarianism, that distance stays short. We can aim far. We can shoot beyond the immediate. That's why the man without aesthetics, without ownership of himself, without healthy realism, is condemned to emptiness, condemned to a life that's robotic, narrow, and endlessly repetitive. And so, it's clear the union of aesthetics and realism offers a way forward, a path beyond modern utilitarianism and its shallow, limited pragmatism. If you find value in this video, don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.